morning, friends. Welcome back to Willow Creek Homestead. My name is Kenzie if you are new here. I'm going to go ahead and apologize for the raspiness in my voice. I have been sick for about a week and a half now with a sinus infection that I cannot seem to get rid of. So sorry if my voice is off. But in today's video, we have an absolutely massive planting day ahead of us. We are going to be finishing up doing all of our tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and the rest of the warm weather crops that I really need to get in the ground. So I think first and foremost, we are going to go ahead and start with the tomatoes. I have a bunch of them over here, and we are going to start filling up all of these trellised rows. I also have some tomatillos and just a bunch of fun things to throw in here. So we got a lot to accomplish, a lot to do today, so let's get started. Okay, so each one of these trellises is 16 feet long, and a tomato technically needs about 2 feet of spacing in between each plant to offer proper air circulation and just keep diseases and things like that from spreading really fast. So I can do 8 tomato plants per trellis. And I have a wide variety of tomatoes that I have grown this year. Most of them are indeterminate, meaning that they will just keep growing all season long. I do have a couple determinate Roma varieties that I am going to plant, and I probably will just put them on a trellis instead of doing a cage, just because I would have to take up more room over there and I don't really want to do that. It's not necessarily a waste because they will still, go through the trellis just fine. They'll just only get to about right here instead of utilizing all the space. So we're going to go ahead and start getting some of these in the ground. This is a mortgage lifter tomato. This is my first year ever growing this one, and I will try to leave just some pictures and additional information of each variety on the screen for you guys so you can do some research or, look at information on the variety and see if it might be a good fit for you in your area. And I'm really proud of myself, you guys. I started all of my tomatoes and peppers this year from seed. I did not have to buy any of them, which was my ultimate goal, so that feels really good. I did come here yesterday and do a lot of weeding on the other rows, but these ones I'm just going to focus on planting, and then I'm going to come back in a couple days and do all of the weeding. I just don't have time today to do it all. So first things first, I went ahead and dug a super deep hole. Tomatoes need to be planted super deep if you can do that, because along the stem will develop new roots. So the deeper you can plant them, the more strength it will give the plant in general. And then secondly, to help with blossom end rot, which is a calcium deficiency that tomatoes are really prone to, I like to use some of this bone meal in each hole. So you don't have to be super specific, but I have a little measuring cup in here, and I just go ahead and sprinkle some in each hole as I plant them so that the tomatoes have readily available calcium to them, and then hopefully it will help them not have blossom end rot issues. A lot of the times tomatoes are more susceptible to blossom end rot in like their first flush of fruit, and I have found that if I add this, I kind of bypass that first initial flush of a lot of blossom end rot problems that a lot of people seem to have. I am also going to go ahead and break off any of the bottom leaves. And if I see any flower development on the tomato itself, I am going to pick those off, because for now, I just want my plant to focus on getting really strong and developing really strong roots. I don't want it worrying about putting on fruit just yet. All right, friends, first tomato of the season is in. Okay, so now I'm just going to keep repeating that exact same process all along this row. This tomato is called a vintage wine. I am so incredibly excited to see what these look like, you guys. This is, again, my first year with these, and online they look absolutely beautiful. These next ones are called striped Germans, and again, I had never heard of them. My father-in-law wanted some extra tomatoes, so I picked us up a pack and then just have 2 left over. So we are going to get these in the ground and see what we get. They're like a very beautiful orangey yellow tomato, so super excited for these as well. And again, I'm pruning all of those bottom leaves, so whenever I plant this, hopefully all of this will be covered by dirt and we can get some new root growth up along this entire stem. And I'm almost right at the middle of these 16-foot panels, so there's 4 on this side, so that's absolutely perfect for their spacing. This tomato is a super interesting one. I don't know what it is, but it produces fuchsia pink tomatoes every single year, and I've saved seeds from it for the past 2 years. I think it's some type of pink brandy wine, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but these are really, really fun to harvest, so I can't wait to show you guys what they look like as they start to come in. Okay, so I got this row done with the tomatoes. There's 8 of them in here. But I still have this area right here and kind of on the side that's open. I did go ahead and plant some flowers in the front of this. I'm not going to go over everything that's in the garden right now because I do want to give you guys like a final garden tour. But I did get some planting done a couple weeks ago, so there's some really fun and exciting things that are in here on some of these rows. But I think what I'm going to do to use up some of this space is plant some of this basil that I have started. Now, this is not all of the basil, but this is kind of a smaller container, and I think I can fill all of this space up basically with what's in here. So this is, I believe, purple, or maybe it's opal basil. It's a dark purple basil. It's actually my favorite. And then there is some mammoth basil in here as well. This year especially, you guys, I am just really trying to maximize my growing space. Like even this little area, it might not look like much, and honestly it's not a big deal if there's nothing here. But again, if there's nothing here, then nothing is growing and I can't harvest anything from it. So I'm really just trying to expand on companion planting and finding things that work really well together to kind of maximize my garden space so that we have a very abundant harvest, hopefully all summer long. And basil is very easy to grow. A lot of other herbs are considered more cold tolerant or will do better in like cooler climates. Basil really, really, really likes the warm. So anything above 50, make sure your last frost date is passed and you are good to go. Basil and tomatoes is like the perfect companion plant combination also. If you can throw basil in with your tomatoes or marigolds, it's just a really, really, really good combination for companion planting. So I always try to plant a bunch of this in with any tomato varieties that I do. Friends, I was doing all the basil and I looked down and I literally thought this worm was a snake. Look at how big this sucker is. Absolutely freaking massive. It scared the heck out of me. I wanted to talk to you guys about this tomato right here. So this tomato is called a Tigerella tomato, and it is probably one of my absolute favorite tomato varieties. I grew it for the first time last year, and I would say it is probably 3 times the size of like a Super Sweet 100 cherry tomato. But the tomatoes themselves, the flavors are really, really compact and just absolutely delicious. The clusters are huge, and the tomatoes themselves are really, really pretty. And you can find these at MI Gardener's website. So if you are looking for like not a super big tomato variety to put in your garden that's indeterminate and the flavor is absolutely amazing, I highly, highly recommend giving these a try. Okay friends, I got all of the tomatoes in, including our cherry tomatoes. So I did some Sun Gold and Super Sweet 100s. Those are my absolute favorite cherry tomatoes, and I actually had enough to just start a new trellis. So I thought with the cherry tomatoes, we could go ahead and start putting in our tomatillos. Now, I started these myself. I started probably 7 plants and only ended up with 3, which really stinks, but I did not have time to restart new tomatillos and I couldn't find them at the store to buy. So we have 3 beautiful tomatillo plants that we are going to get planted in the ground. And one of you guys told me last year, because I had only planted 1 plant and I had like no success with it. So one of you told me that you need 2. So if you are new to tomatillos and you go to grow them this year, just know that you need 2 plants to cross-pollinate to produce fruit for you, which I did not know that last year. So it pays to be informed, and hopefully we get an awesome tomatillo harvest this year because I really want to can up some salsa verde with you guys. And tomatillos are very similar to tomatoes. So basically I'm just removing all of the bottom leaves. I don't know if they can produce new roots from their stem, but I know that it's okay to plant them deeply. So that is what I'm doing. The only thing that I'm not doing is picking off the flowers because I don't know if that's a good idea or not. And I'm not super knowledgeable on if you pick the flowers off, if it's more beneficial for the tomatillo plant. So I'm just going to leave them on. But I am going to go ahead and get these planted pretty deeply. And I have tried the green tomato salsa verde. I did try to make that last year and it's just not my favorite and it's not the same. So that is not something that I will be canning this year, but I'm hoping we can use these tomatillos to do some salsa verde in the green tomatoes place. Now, it is a really good way to use your green tomatoes. In my opinion, green tomatoes are just very bitter and it's very hard to cook with anything green tomato based. So for those of you that like it, good for you because it's a way to not waste them. I just cannot get into the flavor whatsoever. All right, friends, so now we are going to move on to all of the peppers. It feels really good to get all of those tomatoes and things done. I did go ahead and stick a couple of cucumbers in the ground as well, and then we have one more trellis that I have to fill up, and I'm racking my brain on what to put there because it's crazy going from such a small garden to such a big garden. That row and this row I have planted in. The middle row I have not even started. Nothing has been planted in any of these rows and there's still so much space. So I gotta rack my brain and see what I can come up with to fill that last trellis. Maybe we'll do some different melons or something. I'm not really sure. But I did go ahead and just wet this row down a little bit to make it a bit easier to work with. And we have any and every pepper you could possibly ever want or think of. I am going to come back once these are planted and put stakes in the ground and tie them to them. But while they're like this small right now, it's not really a big deal. So peppers, unlike tomatoes, do not like to be planted super deep. Basically, as deep as they are planted in your pot or your cup is where you're going to want to plant them in the ground. So we do not have to dig super deep in this row by any means. And I'm going to try and keep like varieties with like varieties if I can help it. And we are going to start making our way down this row. So these are all of our peppercini peppers. And peppers do tend to get quite large, depending on the variety. Peppercinis specifically are kind of a bigger pepper. So I am going to leave probably like 1 foot to 1.5 feet in between each pepper plant. And we have 3 of these this year because these are my absolute favorite peppers to pickle. And I'm just going to remove all of the bottom leaves and get this in the ground. Okay, first pepper down, and that feels absolutely amazing. We have tons more to go, but the first one is done. So we have a little win right off the bat, and hopefully that will give us some steam to keep going. Because I am really still just not feeling that good. Has anybody else had just a long-lasting sinus infection this year that you just can't get rid of? I managed to not get sick all winter long, and then go figure, right at the time that I need to be out in the garden planting and doing all of this stuff and having energy, I get sick. It is just my luck. I almost forgot to stick my labels in here. It has also just been so dry here, guys. I'm in Iowa, and the forecast for a week and a half even is no rain whatsoever. So everything is just really, really dry and humid. Okay, so next we are gonna do some of these Bequino peppers. This is my first year growing these, but if you watched the video where we started them all together, I have seen tons of people rave about this pepper. So I really wanted to give it a try this year, and we will see what we get. These are kind of a smaller pepper. They're very like itty bitty. So I'm hoping it's not gonna be too difficult to harvest them because of their size. I'm going to try and keep all of my bell peppers together. So anything else basically that isn't a bell pepper, we will get probably in this row, and then maybe the bell peppers on that row. I'm not sure exactly how much space these will take up, but here are our poblano peppers, and I have 4 of these. My family and I really, really, really love poblano peppers. They are so incredibly good roasted or stuffed. You can stuff them with like cream cheese and wrap them in bacon and things. They're really, really good. Okay, so then these next ones are called Cayenne Sweet, and they're like a rainbow sweet cayenne pepper, and I thought that they were so cool looking. So we have 2 of these going on the ground. And then we also have 2 banana peppers. And then for the last little bit of the row, I have some jalapenos, and then I also have some Big Jim peppers. And I will find something to fill up the space in the middle of this row. I don't know if we'll do like flowers or herbs or carrots or something, but we will find something to plant in and around all of this. I'm just trying to leave them adequate space. Depending on the type of pepper also, you guys, you could probably plant them much closer together than I am, especially if they're like a smaller variety. Last year, I planted multiple varieties of peppers and like 2 to 3 peppers in a grow bag at a time, and that worked out really good for me. So if you are limited on space, feel free to plant these much closer together than I am.
So at this point in the day, friends, my voice decided to completely go out. It was so hoarse and raspy. I just could not talk anymore. But I did end up getting several other things done. So I went ahead and devoted about half of one of my 3x16 rows to green beans. And these are a stringless variety that I found. It's a Burpee brand, but it's like a big bulk package of them that you can buy at Walmart. I think it was like $7 or something. Usually, I try not to buy like Burpee seeds or some of the other bigger name brand seed companies at Walmart. It just so happened that I was able to find this in bulk, so that worked out really, really good for me. And I have never canned green beans before, but that is on the list of things that I would like to preserve this summer. So I'm hoping we get a really good green bean harvest so that we can can up a bunch of them together. And then for the middle of the row, I went ahead and planted some black beans. These are a bush variety, and then I didn't film it, but at the end, I went ahead and used some extra pinto beans that are also a bush variety that I had seeds saved from last year. So this entire row I devoted to beans of several different kinds. So this will be really, really fun to see what comes up and see what we get. Beans you can space very, very close together. I think it was about 3 inches apart for all of those. So you can really pack them in quite densely. And then on my row where my snapdragons and my onions are, I went ahead and planted several different kinds of melons. I did some sugar baby watermelons, some crimson sweet watermelons, and then these Chirantis and Haogan melons. Now, I did start some of those, but I had terrible luck on germination, and a lot of your melons anyway prefer to be just directly sown instead of started from seed and then transplanted. So I'm hoping that this gives them a better jump start and we have better germination on this. My family and I really love melons, so I definitely wanted to make sure that I planted a bunch of them so that we could get a harvest. And then I also went ahead and watered all of this in very deeply. I am quickly learning that with in-ground gardening in comparison to container gardening, the water requirement is much heavier than it is whenever you are watering a container. So if you are new and you are doing an in-ground garden, be sure to really, really water all of your things very deeply, because a lot of the times you are just watering the surface of the soil, and I would dig down and it would still be very dry. So I watered in all of this stuff very, very heavy. Lastly, I went ahead and planted my blue Hubbard squash along the trellis. I thought that this was a vining squash and it's not. It's just a sprawl out on the ground type, but I think I'm going to try and get it to go through the trellis. And then here I was just showing how terrible the germination was on all of those things that I started, but I did go ahead and plant some more kabocha squash and some more sweet dumpling squash, and that was about all I got done on this day, you guys. I was still feeling a little bit cruddy, but I still managed to get a lot accomplished and it felt really good. So thank you guys all so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.